No one will suspect. My wife told her boyfriend over the phone. She was spiking my food for a $1.5 million payout. So I played along, pressed play at dessert, and she ended up behind bars. Sup, Reddit. Not sure where to begin, so I'll just dive in. This isn't your casual read. Get comfy. So let's start with the obvious. I, 38 male, married Maddie. 33 female? Because I thought I hit the jackpot. She was the type who could walk into a room and get a free latte just by existing. Real estate agent. Constantly on Instagram posting her closings with giant cardboard keys. Looking like she was selling dreams instead of houses. Meanwhile, I just cashed out of a startup, so my life was basically rich enough to be interesting. Not rich enough to buy an island. Perfect match, right? Boston living meant we got the kind of place where you pay a fortune to be stacked like Jenga pieces with your neighbors. But Maddie decorated it so it looked like a magazine spread, which impressed everyone except me, since I was the one paying for it. She made sure to tell people I'd done really well for myself, like I was a show pony she'd leased out. And I didn't mind. Who doesn't like a hype woman when she's hot and smiling? The first couple years were fine. Then she started talking future planning. You know that talk? Kids? Retirement? Nope. She meant life insurance. What if something happened to you, she said, in that tone women use when they're about to make you do something stupid, while convincing you it's actually your idea. I figured fine. I'm worth more dead than alive anyway. Why not? Next thing I know, my life insurance is bumped to $1.5 million. Maddie's the sole beneficiary, of course. If that sounds like foreshadowing, congrats, you're paying attention. Now, let's get to me falling apart like a 1998 Honda Civic. I'd been healthy. Gym a few times a week, decent diet, nothing crazy. Then, right around the 1-year mark, I start feeling off, dizzy, nausea, heart doing the cha-cha during meetings. I thought maybe it was just stress or too much caffeine because the doctors said exactly that after running every test in the book. Blood work? Perfect. Heart? Normal. Stress, buddy. Take some pills, breathe more, live less. Meanwhile, Maddie's turning into Florence Nightingale. She insists on making me smoothies, packing my lunches, brewing my coffee every morning. If there was a Wife of the Year contest, she'd be handing out samples at the door. I'd walk into work with her homemade lunch like a kid on the first day of school. Everyone thought it was cute. I thought, wow, I'm lucky. Spoiler, not so much. Here's the kicker. Every single episode hit me after her food or drinks. Not once after I grabbed takeout. Not after eating out. Only after her made with love meals. At first, I brushed it off. What kind of paranoid lunatic suspects his wife of poisoning him? I just kept going back to the ER like a frequent flyer. They'd pat me on the head, say stress, and Maddie would sit there like the supportive spouse, nodding like she's auditioning for a Hallmark special. Outside the doctor visits, Maddie kept hammering the future talk. We should update our wills, she'd say, curled up next to me like she wasn't basically negotiating my funeral in advance. She'd mention what would happen if I wasn't around. Casual stuff. No red flags at all, right? She also made sure everyone knew how worried she was about me. She'd call my mom and sigh about how I was working too hard, not taking care of myself. My mom would call me after, parroting Maddie's lines. Honey, you really need to slow down. Maddie's so worried about you. Great. Now even my mom thinks I'm a stubborn idiot. Maddie was setting up the perfect paper trail. But I didn't know that then. I just kept feeling like garbage and assuming it was my own fault. The timing was brutal. I'd go to bed fine, wake up groggy, drink her smoothie, and suddenly I'm sweating like I ran a marathon I never signed up for. Then I'd spend the day trying not to faint in front of my employees. Maddie would call during lunch to check if I ate the food she made, like she was my dietitian. I thought it was sweet. Yeah, let that sink in. She really leaned into the doting wife act. She even Googled my symptoms at night, reading WebMD articles out loud like she was on shift at the ER. Maybe it's anxiety. Maybe it's your heart. Meanwhile, she's topping off my coffee mug with that innocent smile, and I'm sipping away like an idiot. The anniversary planning came right around then. Maddie loves rooftops, loves aesthetic photos, so of course she wants a rooftop dinner with both families. About 35 people total. She sells it as this grand celebration. She talks to the manager at this fancy place downtown, gets the private event room, arranges the flowers, the lighting, the whole 9 yards. I just nod along because what kind of husband argues with his wife about having a nice anniversary dinner? She lays it on thick. It's going to be unforgettable, she says. Everyone will see how strong we are. Meanwhile, I'm thinking, strong? Lady, I can't even walk up the stairs without wondering if my heart's about to explode. But I let her have her moment. Because when your wife wants a perfect rooftop dinner, you give her the damn dinner. Looking back, Every single move was strategic. The life insurance bump, the endless concern, the perfectly timed phone calls to my family, the curated meals, the anniversary setup. It was all bricks in a wall I didn't even notice being built. At the time, I just thought I was unlucky, sick, stressed, married to a woman who cared too much. What I didn't realize was that she wasn't just building a wall. She was building the stage. And I was supposed to collapse right on cue in front of 35 witnesses, while she dabbed her eyes and played the grieving widow. That's the kind of show Maddie liked. High production value, big audience, perfect lighting. Of course, I didn't know any of that then. To me, it was just life. Me feeling like garbage, doctors calling me stressed, Maddie planning the perfect anniversary, and me agreeing because what could possibly go wrong? You ever eavesdrop on something you wish you hadn't? Yeah. Picture me midnight, wandering into the kitchen for water, when my wife decides that's the perfect time to hold her little work call. Except it wasn't about real estate. Unless real estate now means how to turn your husband into a corpse without getting caught. Maddie has her phone on speaker, because apparently keeping crime private is too much effort. And who do I hear? Cole, her co-worker. Mr. Always Around, the guy I thought was just her office buddy who helped carry open house signs. Turns out he was helping carry a whole different load. And they're not whispering, not plotting in code. Nope, just casually tossing around phrases like final big dose and anniversary dinner like they're picking a wine list. I'm standing in the hallway thinking, did I just get drafted into a low-budget Lifetime movie? Because it sure felt like it. She says, after the dinner, nobody will suspect. Heart attack, stress, perfect timing. He says, yeah, then you're set. That's it. That's the conversation. Not, how was your day? Not, did you feed the cat? Straight up murder logistics? I didn't make a sound. I didn't storm in. I didn't throw the glass at the wall like some dramatic TV husband. Nope. I stood there listening and realized two things. One, my wife was trying to kill me. Two, I was apparently still polite enough not to interrupt her call about it. So she hangs up, wanders back to bed like she hadn't just scheduled my funeral, and I go sit on the couch wondering if I'm losing my mind. Maybe I misheard. Maybe final big dose was code for something else. Maybe I was paranoid. Then I remembered my heart had been doing salsa routines every time I drank her coffee. And suddenly, no, I wasn't paranoid. First thing I did wasn't call the cops. Nope, I Googled recording laws. Because, you know, if my wife is actively trying to poison me, I should at least make sure I don't break any wiretap rules while proving it. Priorities. Turns out Massachusetts is a two-party consent state. I couldn't secretly record her myself, but detectives with a judge's intercept order could. I have to get creative. Visible stuff only. Video of actions, not audio of words. Paper trails, not phone calls. Basically, I had to play Boy Scout while living in a murder mystery. I started making a list. It was the most depressing to-do list I've ever written. Most guys are jotting down, buy milk or fix the sink. Mine had things like, buy camera, mark symptoms, avoid her food. I even added don't die before anniversary dinner, just to keep myself motivated. Meanwhile, I couldn't tip her off. Imagine telling your wife, hey honey, could you not kill me this week? And expecting that to go well. So I had to keep playing dumb, eat some of her meals, pretend I didn't notice the weird aftertaste, smile when she told my mom how worried she was. Academy Award for Best Performance in totally not being slowly murdered by my wife goes to me. I also had to change how I ate. If Maddie made dinner, I'd forget to eat much and then sneak a sandwich later. If she brewed coffee, I'd pour it down the sink when she wasn't looking. She thought I was stressed and losing my appetite. I thought I was avoiding being embalmed early. The worst part? She kept acting normal. Same cheerful Maddie, same let's plan the anniversary energy, same fake concern. If she was nervous about plotting a felony, she didn't show it. Meanwhile, I'm sitting across from her thinking, this woman literally just said she's going to kill me. And here she is talking about flower arrangements for the rooftop dinner. I knew I couldn't handle this alone. That's when I remembered Jack, old buddy from college, now a private investigator. Guy has a license, knows the rules, knows how not to screw up evidence. If anyone could help me build a case that didn't fall apart in court, it was him. But I couldn't just call him yet. I needed at least some proof before dragging him into my soap opera. So I decided step 1 was to stop dying long enough to set up step 2. Keep her convinced I was still clueless. Keep track of symptoms. Start documenting patterns. And figure out how the hell to survive until the rooftop dinner she was clearly planning as my grand finale. At this point, I'd stopped even questioning if I was overreacting. You don't overhear final big dose and think, maybe she meant vitamins. Number. Vitamins don't come with a payout clause and a convenient party setting for 35 witnesses. I was on the chopping block, and the butcher was smiling at me across the breakfast table. The whole thing was so absurd, I couldn't even process it like a normal person. I'm sitting there, drafting a list that includes avoid smoothies, like that's a normal Tuesday, while my wife is in the other room, FaceTiming her friend about centerpieces. Every minute felt like a bad sitcom with terrible writing. By the end of the night, I had my plan. Document everything I could see. Don't eat what she makes. Get Jack involved when I had enough to hand him. And when the anniversary dinner rolled around, either I'd be 6 feet under, or I'd have something solid enough to stop her. And yeah, I still agreed to the dinner. Because apparently, despite everything, I thought I could out-stupid the situation by playing along. You'd think a guy who built a startup would be smarter. Nope. I was the idiot sitting in his living room at 2 a.m., typing, "How to survive your wife poisoning you," into Google like a lunatic. I hadn't talked to Jack in a while, but desperate times, right? So I called him up and told him, in the calmest voice possible, "Hey man, my wife's trying to kill me. You busy?" He laughed, thought I was joking. Then I laid out the midnight phone call. The final big dose. The ER visits. The conveniently timed smoothies. Silence on the line. Finally, he says, "Jesus, you're serious." Jack being Jack, he doesn't just say, "Sure, I'll help." He makes me sign a retainer for $1. One. Why? Because if anyone tries to say later, "Oh, the PI was just doing a favor for his buddy," Jack can shove that signed paper in their face. He's a professional, even when the client is his idiot friend who didn't notice his wife was building a slow cooker homicide plan. He tells me straight, "I can't break the law for you. I can only collect what's legal. Public sightings, open source stuff, timestamps, anything that needs compulsion goes to the cops." Perfect. That's exactly what I needed. Someone who wouldn't screw up the evidence by playing Jason Bourne. Step 1 was cameras. Not audio, because apparently Massachusetts cares more about my wife's privacy than my heart exploding. Just video. So I bought a nanny cam. Disguised as a regular kitchen gadget, because Maddie would definitely notice if I mounted a GoPro over the sink. I set it up one morning while she was at a showing. That night, jackpot. Maddie in the kitchen, casually crushing something into a fine powder and mixing it into my coffee. Like she was prepping a protein shake. I didn't touch it. Dumped it in the sink when she wasn't looking. The video, though, that was gold. I sent it to Jack. He called me 10 minutes later and said, "Okay, this is bad. Really bad. You need to sit tight and not die until I can line this up properly." Next, the bottle. She left it in a cabinet above the fridge, probably thinking I'd never reach that high. I pulled it down, snapped photos, put it back exactly the same way. Amber-colored, unlabeled, clearly not from CVS. Jack looked at the photos and said, "That's not your average supplement. Don't touch it again." Meanwhile, I had to stop being the world's dumbest lab rat. I stopped eating anything Maddie cooked. If she made dinner, I'd say I wasn't hungry, then sneak out later for a sandwich. She thought I was stressed. Yeah, stressed about not ending up face down on the carpet. One day she brought me a latte to make up for being snappy. I lifted the lid, sniffed, and nearly gagged. Metallic smell. I dumped it in the trash and spent the next hour at urgent care just in case. They told me I was fine. Great. Add paranoid idiot to my medical file. The more I dodged her food, the better I felt. Symptoms faded. Imagine that. Turns out not drinking poison helps. The ER didn't miss anything. They ran the standard clinical panels that rule out the usual suspects and life threats. Those tests aren't designed to flag a novel, unlisted compound, especially when it's given in small, intermittent amounts and clears quickly enough that by the time blood is drawn, there's nothing obvious to catch. After the rooftop sting, detectives sent my cake and iced coffee to the crime lab and, under a warrant, seized an unlabeled amber bottle from our kitchen. With targeted forensic testing, the kind done only when investigators specify what to look for, the lab found the same foreign compound in all three. No hit on routine screens didn't mean nothing was there. It meant no one was looking for that. Jack did his part. He followed her a couple times, saw her meeting up with Cole in parking lots, snapping photos like he was doing a promo shoot for Affair Weekly. He dug into receipts that showed she'd been at vet clinics, of all places, with Cole. Ask yourself, what normal real estate agent and her co-worker hang around vet clinics if they don't own pets? Answer, the kind that want to buy meds you can't get at Walgreens. Jack also started piecing together her digital trail. Open source breadcrumbs, search histories, half-deleted posts, things syncing to cloud accounts she forgot about. He kept it legal. No hacking, no Hollywood nonsense. Just knowing where to look. Every bit of it painted the same picture. Maddie wasn't winging this. She'd been planning it for months. That's when Jack said, "We've got enough to get the cops interested. Enter Detective Megan." She didn't laugh, didn't roll her eyes, didn't call me crazy. She listened, took notes, watched the video, looked at the bottle photos, reviewed Jack's file. Then she said the magic words. "We can get a narrowly scoped search warrant and petition for a court-authorized intercept order. If a judge signs off, we can lawfully record calls." A judge signed off on narrow ones. Devices, cloud accounts, bank records. Nothing crazy, just enough to dig. And what do you know? More incriminating texts. Maddie telling Cole things like timing has to be right, and final dose. Because criminals are apparently allergic to deleting messages. Megan was methodical. She told me flat out, "If you confront her, you lose everything. Keep playing dumb, we'll set a sting." The plan was almost funny in how simple it was. Maddie had already booked the rooftop dinner for our anniversary. Megan talked to the manager. They agreed to rig the AV system. When the time came, I'd play the recordings over the house speakers in front of 35 people. Plainclothes officers and EMTs would already be in the room. Staff would log any weird requests Maddie made about my food. And if she tried anything, they'd have her dead to rights in public, with a chain of custody starting at the table. Jack stepped back. He'd be at the dinner as a regular guest, blending in. If the defense tried to scream biased friend, his role would be limited to the affidavit about what he personally saw and documented. No star witness routine. Just another piece of the puzzle. That's when it hit me. Maddie wasn't just building a wall of lies. She was building a stage. And Megan was about to flip the lights on in front of her entire audience. So I went along, ate my sandwiches in secret, nodded when Maddie gushed about the anniversary, smiled when she said how special the rooftop was going to be. And every time she handed me a coffee or a smoothie, I poured it down the sink the second she left the room. I had the nanny cam rolling, Jack compiling, Megan prepping, and a rooftop dinner looming. The only thing I had to do was stay alive until showtime. And if you're wondering, yes, I kept drinking bottled water straight from sealed containers, like a paranoid survivalist. Maddie thought I was hydrating for health. I knew I was just avoiding becoming her retirement plan. So the big night finally comes. The rooftop dinner Maddie wouldn't shut up about. She'd been planning it for weeks like it was the Met Gala, except instead of celebrities, the guest list was our parents, siblings, and anyone she could guilt into pretending they liked us. About 35 people total, just enough for her to pull off the tragic widow act when I keeled over from my heart attack. She picked this swanky place downtown with a skyline view. Flowers, string lights, overpriced catering. Maddie walked in like she was hosting the Oscars, all smiles, hugging relatives, telling waiters where to stand. Nobody knew she was basically trying to reserve a table for one at my funeral. I'd been prepping for this like it was game day. Didn't touch anything she made me the whole week leading up to it. Survived on sandwiches, bottled water, and paranoia. Jack was there as just another guest. Megan's team had already blended in. Plainclothes officers sprinkled through the crowd, EMTs hanging out nearby, and the restaurant manager pretending nothing unusual was happening, while actually keeping notes on every move Maddie made. Dinner itself was uneventful. Maddie played the perfect wife, clinking glasses, thanking everyone for coming, making speeches about 5 years of love like she hadn't spent the last 6 months spiking my coffee. People lapped it up. My mom even leaned over and whispered, "You're lucky to have her." Yeah, thanks, Mom. Real solid read on the room. Then Maddie goes in for the kill. Literally. She disappears to the kitchen under the excuse of checking on dessert, which of course was my cue to brace for whatever stunt she had planned. Kitchen staff, already warned, watched her ask for my plate to be handled separately. She comes back 5 minutes later, smiling, carrying a piece of cake and a tall iced coffee. "My favorite," she says. Sure, favorite way to get embalmed. I don't even look at the food. Megan gives me a slight nod from across the room. Time to roll. Now here's where the night almost went sideways. I hook my phone up to the restaurant's sound system like we'd planned, but the connection crackles. Loud pop, dead silence. For a second I thought, great, now my wife gets to watch me fumble the AV system before she finishes me off. Megan shoots a look at the manager like she's about to throw him off the roof. He dives for the cables, jiggles something, and the sound steadies. I clear my throat. 35 pairs of eyes on me. Maddie standing there with her cake and coffee, waiting for me to drop. Instead, I say, "Actually, before dessert, I think you all should hear something." And I hit play. The room fills with Maddie's voice, clear as day, from the police wiretap. After the dinner, nobody will suspect. Heart attack. Stress. Perfect timing. Then Cole's voice. "Yeah, then you're set." Dead silence. Forks midair. cousin's blinking like I just turned into Netflix. Luke, my brother, moves closer, because he's the only one who half suspected something was off. Maddie freezes, clutching the plate. Then she tries to laugh. This is ridiculous! He's making a joke. Wrong answer. The officers move in fast. They grab the plate and glass straight out of her hands and bag them. Chain of custody starts right there at the table. One officer opens her clutch and, surprise, finds pre-crushed packets of whatever she'd been slipping me. Maddie panics. It's a prank! This isn't real. She looks around like someone's going to back her up. Nobody does. My aunt drops her spoon. My dad just stares at her like he can't believe he ever let her in the family. Cuffs click. Maddie's arms behind her back, officers walking her out while she screams about misunderstandings. The iced coffee and cake head straight to the lab in sealed bags. Guests are speechless. The kind of silence you only get when 35 people just realize they almost watched a live murder attempt. Jack takes a few photos from his seat. Nothing dramatic, just wide shots of the setup for his affidavit. He doesn't move, doesn't interfere, just documents. Megan gives me the tiniest nod like, yeah, we nailed it. And that was it. No dramatic chase, no screaming match. Just my wife being hauled off in cuffs in front of her entire family, her perfect rooftop dinner turning into Exhibit A. The best part? She still tried to keep up the act on her way out. I was joking. You know me, I joke all the time. Yeah, nothing says lighthearted humor like slipping poison into your husband's coffee at a family dinner. Real knee slapper. Everyone else just sat there. Nobody ate dessert. Can't imagine why. If you think the rooftop circus was the end, you'd be wrong. That was just the trailer. The feature film was the trial. And let me tell you, watching lawyers argue over whether your wife was trying to kill you is a special kind of entertainment. First came the evidence dump. Detectives rolled out everything Megan's team had collected. Browser history where Maddie searched things like how much life insurance pays out if husband dies suddenly, and symptoms of heart failure. Very subtle. Then there were texts between her and Cole, where she actually typed the words, final dose. Honestly, if criminals stopped writing everything down, half the justice system would be out of work. Bank records showed a nice little side account Maddie had been padding with, about $40,000 she skimmed off me. Vet visit logs had her and Cole showing up to clinics like they were auditioning for a dog they didn't own. Add to that the nanny cam footage of her sprinkling mystery powder into my coffee, plus the clutch full of crushed packets she brought to the rooftop, and the jury basically had a Costco-sized bundle of evidence. Then there was Cole. The guy folded faster than a lawn chair. He cut a deal the second he realized Maddie wasn't getting bail. Took the stand and sang like a canary. Yes, Maddie planned it. Yes, she said the rooftop was perfect, because people would believe stress killed him. Yes, she handled the dosing. He even admitted she was the one Googling poisons, while he just nodded along. What a hero. Still got 12 years though. That's what you get for trying to be Bonnie without realizing Clyde's a moron. The prosecution lined it all up neat for the jury. Under a subsequent search warrant, detectives seized the amber bottle from our kitchen. The lab reported the same compound in the bottle and in residues from the cake and coffee. Kitchen staff testimony. Maddie asked for my dessert to be made separate. Financial motive? $1.5 million life insurance, thank you very much. They wrapped it all with different sources, same story. Honestly, even I was impressed with how airtight it was. Of course, Maddie's defense attorney had to try. His big play was going after Jack. Since Jack's my buddy from college, the lawyer tried to paint him as some biased friend making up evidence. Isn't it true you're personally close to the defendant's husband? He asked, real smug. Jack didn't even flinch. Since college, yes. Which is why I opened a formal case file, signed a retainer, and handed anything needing compulsion directly to law enforcement. Boom. Defense lawyer looked like he just bit into a lemon. Prosecutor jumps back up on redirect and hammers it home. Kitchen staff logged the separate prep. Lab confirmed the powder. Texts confirm the plan. Mr. Bennett, that's Cole, confirms who was running the show. Different sources. Same story. Juries nodding along like they're at church. Meanwhile, Maddie sat at the defense table looking like she was the victim of a grand misunderstanding. She even tried the "we were just joking" angle again. Yeah, because nothing screams comedy routine like pre-mixing heart meds into your husband's coffee. Real knee slapper, Maddie. The jury convicted on attempted murder, conspiracy, and fraud. The judge imposed a decades-long state prison term for Maddie. Cole, after cooperating, received a shorter but still double-digit sentence. Neither of them looked thrilled. Now here's the funny part. Maddie's lawyer actually tried to argue she should still get the insurance payout, as if there wasn't a thing called the Slayer rule that says you don't get paid for trying to kill the person you insured. Judge shut that down so fast it was almost rude. The beneficiary of a policy may not profit from their own felonious conduct. Translation: nice try, now go enjoy your cell. After sentencing, the media circus kicked in. Some tabloid hack tried shouting at me outside the courthouse, asking if I faked the audio for clout. Because yeah, clearly my big plan was to fake my wife's murder attempt for Reddit karma. Luke stepped between me and the guy, shoved him back, and told him to shut it. Megan told me later, keep your mouth shut with the press. Let the evidence do the talking. Fine by me. The families didn't know what to do. Her parents were crying in the back row. My parents just looked relieved I wasn't dead. Half the guests from the rooftop dinner sent me awkward texts afterward like, crazy night, huh? As if they'd just watched a bad play instead of my wife getting arrested for trying to poison me. In the end, it was clean. Maddie in prison for 25 to life, Cole locked up for 12. Insurance company shut down her payout fantasy. And me? I walked out free, alive. And now officially the guy whose anniversary dinner turned into a sting operation. Not exactly the legacy I planned, but better than being a headline that read, local tech guy drops dead at rooftop party. After the trial wrapped and Maddie got her shiny 25 to life deal, everyone acted like the credits rolled. But no one tells you that the credits don't roll when you're the guy who almost got murdered. You still have to get up in the morning, pay bills, and figure out why your pantry feels like a crime scene. First order of business: sell the house. I couldn't stay in the place where Maddie once stood over my coffee with a pestle and mortar, like she was making artisanal poison. Every drawer felt suspicious, every cabinet a reminder. So I put the condo on the market and got out fast. Lucky for me, Boston real estate moves quicker than Maddie's ability to Google undetectable poisons. Within 2 months, I was in Denver. New city, no baggage, fewer people whispering, "Isn't that the guy whose wife tried to kill him at his anniversary party?" The Denver place was simple. Modern, open floor plan, clean lines. The kind of house where if you drop a crumb, you see it instantly. No hiding spots for mystery powders. It felt more like living, and less like waiting for the next ER visit. I had to reprogram myself, basically. No shrink, no couch, just me figuring out how not to live like a paranoid raccoon. Step 1. Stop treating every cup of coffee like it was a live grenade. Step 2. Rebuild the basics. Eating takeout without triple-checking the receipt, finally trusting the guy at the pizza place wasn't on Maddie's payroll. Sleeping without marching around the house at midnight to confirm every door and window was locked, like I was guarding Fort Knox. Even doctor visits got easier. I stopped assuming the nurse would come back with, "Sorry, turns out your wife slipped something in your system again." It was all small wins, stacked up. Nothing dramatic, just slow proof that life didn't have to be one long episode of CSI Kitchen Edition. Once the dust settled, I realized I had a choice. Either stay the guy whose wife tried to poison him forever, or do something useful with the mess. So I started the Second Dawn Initiative. Sounds dramatic, but it was better than calling it Don't Drink Your Wife's Smoothies Foundation. We set up a 24/7 hotline. First night it went live. The phone rang at 2 in the morning. Someone whispered, "My husband only makes my tea." That call ended with ER staff running the right tests, cops stepping in, and one more person not becoming an obituary. That's when I knew the foundation mattered. Hospitals signed on for trainings. We taught ER doctors what patterns to look for. Patients who keep showing up with vague symptoms, always accompanied by a partner who insists on explaining everything. We built checklists for cops, questions to ask, evidence not to overlook. We even looped in insurers, so if some sketchy spouse suddenly doubled a life insurance policy, and then their partner started randomly getting sick, it didn't just slide through unnoticed. While I was building this, life decided to get ironic. I met Ava during one of the ER trainings. Nurse Sharp didn't treat me like a freak show. We started talking after sessions, strictly professional. I kept it that way because the last thing I needed was a rebound relationship ending with another trip to the morgue. But Ava wasn't pushy. She understood boundaries. She never once tried to hand me a cup of coffee. Big plus. Months passed. We kept crossing paths through the foundation. Slowly, cautiously, I let it move past colleagues. It wasn't fireworks. It was quieter, realistic. She knew what I'd been through and didn't treat me like damaged goods. The turning point was stupidly simple. We went out for dinner. She ordered dessert for both of us. And halfway through, I realized I wasn't scanning the plate like a bomb squad. That's when I knew it was real. By the time we decided to get married, we agreed it wasn't going to be a spectacle. No rooftops, no catered dinners, no 35 witnesses who might end up testifying in court. Just a backyard, string lights, family who actually gave a damn, and no one bringing me special cake. Before the ceremony, I did one thing. Took my old medical alert bracelet, the one that said cardiac patient, because I kept showing up at the ER with mystery symptoms, and boxed it up. Not trashing it, not keeping it on display, just locking it away at the foundation office under the case files. History. Maddie, of course, still tried to stay in my life from prison. Letters, all manipulative garbage. I didn't read them. My lawyer screened them for threats, then archived them. I wasn't giving her the satisfaction. Life didn't magically turn into sunshine, but it turned into something survivable. The foundation kept running. People got help. Police started treating mystery illness calls with more suspicion. ER staff caught red flags earlier. And every so often, a case got prevented because someone called the hotline. That was enough. So yeah, that's the wrap. Maddie's rotting in a cell. Cole's marking time. My name's on a foundation that stops other people from living through the circus I did. And I got a second shot with someone who doesn't lace my coffee. Not the story I expected, but better than the obituary headline Maddie had planned for me.